From golden toilets to a billion-dollar Quran written in his own blood, Saddam Hussein's possessions raised the bar for luxury so high that even today's billionaire moguls would blush. Most dictators collected palaces, but Iraq's former dictator went so far out with indulgences that even his enemies were left speechless when they discovered his hidden gems. We've all heard about Saddam Hussein's tyranny, but we don't know just how extravagantly absurd his life actually was. We're talking about a man who plated everything in gold, literally everything. From his huge car fleet to his personal yachts, everything he had to scream excess. Let's start with his palaces, because this is where things get straight out mind-blowing. Whereas most world leaders may have one or two official residences, Saddam built over 75 presidential palaces during his time in power. Each was more outlandish than the last, with marble imported from Italy, chandeliers made of solid gold, and swimming pools larger than Olympic facilities. One palace in Baghdad in particular had a throne room medieval kings would die for. The ceiling was hand-painted with tales of Mesopotamian history from days of yore. But the craziest thing is that the paint contained gold dust. The throne itself? Solid gold, weighing over 400 pounds. The decorations in this single room alone were worth more than most countries' government complexes. But hold on until you see his personal zoo. This was no typical menagerie of exotic beasts. Saddam boasted animals so outlandish they weren't officially listed. In his lion stable alone, there were over 30 animals better fed than much of his own country's people. Discussing excessive spendings, you won't imagine what he did with his personal dining service. All his dishes were solid gold, with diamonds and precious gemstones embedded at the rim. The cutlery? Also solid gold with handles embedded with rare pearls. Even the napkin rings were platinum and consisted of tiny versions of ancient Babylonian sculptures. His wine cellar would make even the most prolific collector cry tears of envy. In spite of religious objections to alcohol, Saddam had a multi-million-dollar collection. We're not talking 1800s bottles, by the way. We're talking rare vintages that never made it on the open market. Some sat in hand-built cases covered with precious gems. And then, of course, there's his notorious car collection. Saddam did not simply purchase luxury cars. He had them altered to degrees of lunacy. His favorite Mercedes was bulletproofed with gold-plated bodies and equipped with a climate control system that could withstand the blistering Baghdad heat but keep the interior at a delightful 68 degrees. But hold on, there's more. He owned an entire fleet of these very same cars, each of which cost millions, just so potential assassins wouldn't know which one he was driving. Remember that billion-dollar Quran we spoke about? No hype. Saddam commissioned what he called the Blood Quran, a copy of the sacred volume, written with what he claimed was his own blood as ink. For over 2 years, according to reports, he had doctors take his blood in order to produce this awful masterpiece. The piece used over 27 liters of blood, enough to fill several dead human bodies. The pages were bound in leather and decorated with precious stones. His obsession with gold went far beyond decoration. Saddam spent an entire swimming pool of filtered water containing a trace of gold in the hope of staying young. The filtration system itself cost millions to run, and the pool had to be drained and recharged every week or two in order to maintain it pure. The surrounding deck? Paneled with gemstones, inlaid in patterns recreating moments of Arab history. Speaking of water, you will not believe what he did with his yacht fleet. His flagship ship, Al-Mansur, was effectively a palace on water. We are talking of a vessel that carried an operating room with gold-plated medical apparatus, a missile defense system, and an escape helicopter deck. The inside? Marble everywhere, exotic Persian carpets, and bathroom fixtures made of gold. The anchors were gold-plated, because apparently using plain steel just wasn't adequate. But wait till you see something that'll knock your socks off: his arsenal of ancient weapons. We're not talking about common antiques. Saddam had swords said to be owned by ancient Mesopotamian kings, each and every one of them refurbished and modified with gold hilts and precious stones. A particular ceremonial dagger was so valuable that its worth could have fed a small city for a year. The display cases alone for these weapons are worth millions, with gold particle-enriched bulletproof glass and climate control systems more advanced than in most museums. The extent of his addiction to luxuries went far beyond material possessions. Saddam owned a whole TV station, whose purpose was to air whatever he desired to watch. The broadcasting gear, all gold-plated, of course. The station was manned by hundreds of people, whose job was to create material that pleased him. Even the microphones in his private screening room were solid gold with diamond-covered windscreens. His grooming process would be simple to any star spa. He bathed daily in the morning in water fetched from a specific spring in France, believing it had special properties. His haircuts were performed with scissors made of pure platinum, and his combs made out of rare African ivory. His barber chair in his own salon was gold-plated and leather upholstered from a virtually extinct crocodile breed. Let's talk about his collection of art for a minute, because that is where it really gets out of hand. Where other collectors will bid at auction, Saddam just simply took whatever he desired from national collections and private collectors. His personal collection included works which art historians considered to be lost to the ages. But the really out-of-hand part, he had a lot of these priceless artifacts manipulated to include his own face, literally placing himself in paintings of history. His opulence for luxury extended even to the most mundane of objects. Every paperclip on his desk was gold-plated. Every pen was individually made by European craftsmen with precious materials. Even his nose tissues were infused with gold particles and oriental fragrances. The tissue dispensers? Gold bars with mechanical counters that played classical music when opened. His palace kitchens were richer than you'd ever eat in a Michelin restaurant. There were multiple kitchens in each palace, and each of them specialized in cooking a different cuisine. The chef's equipment was all gold-plated, and the pots used in cooking were made of materials so expensive that one of them could have bought a supercar. He had a special group of people who used to taste his food, and they tasted it on golden spoons. Speaking of personal extravagance, what about his wardrobe? Saddam wore a collection of tailor-made suits that would make James Bond jealous. Each and every one of them was lined with bullets and buttoned up with precious stones. His watch collection, more valuable than the yearly budgets of some nations. One of his watches was tailor-made with a case made from a single diamond. The security in his palaces is pricier than some military budgets. We're talking about underground bunkers with technology several decades past its time. One bunker had its own water treatment plant to sustain 100 people for a year, along with an air cleaning plant that was supposed to withstand a nuclear blast. The walls were covered with exotic hardwoods and, of course, gold. His personal entertainment gear was also ridiculous. A palace boasted a cinema, whose seats were upholstered in whaleskin leather, something that didn't even exist technically for sale. The projector? Handcrafted with gold components. The screen? Filled with microscopic diamonds to enhance the quality of images, something which made no technical sense at all, but cost millions nonetheless. The scale of the waste was staggering. While his citizens were fighting to fulfill minimum needs, Saddam spent billions on sheer wastage ventures. He had entire rooms filled with unwrapped presents, untouched automobiles, and unworn garments. Each palace had amenities to support hundreds, but they were mostly empty, maintained by battalion after battalion of workers, in case he should happen by. What is even more staggering about all of this is that most of these riches were not discovered until after his fall. Most of the items were kept in secret places, others were misplaced during the war, and others went into the black market. All we have heard is likely only a small portion of his actual riches. The real cost of Saddam's spending habit addiction will forever remain unknown. As his country suffered under sanctions and war, he continued spending record levels of money on gold accents and diamond-studded anything. His indulgent legacy stands as a warning of the limits to which limitless money and unbridled power can lead one to absolutely frivolous expenditures. Mind blown by these incredible revelations? Leave a comment below and let us know which of Saddam's ridiculous purchases blew your mind the most. Don't forget to subscribe for more shocking stories about history's most outrageous splurgers.